And it is time once again for another AEW Dynamite review here on the MrWarrenHayes Show. Hello and welcome. I'm Warren, and we are going to be breaking down, reviewing, talking about the Winter is Coming edition of AEW Dynamite that happened on December 10, 2025, a signature AEW event. And that's a qualifier that I've started using for about maybe a month now. I think we used it for the first time a couple of weeks ago on that great episode of Dynamite, that excellent episode of Dynamite. And we're back around using the term signature AEW event. And what do I mean by that? I mean a show that focuses on what AEW does best, all of its strengths. Never mind, the sports entertaining stuff that always comes across as second rate, as derivative of what the industry leader is doing, but instead focusing on what sets AEW apart, what makes it different, and in areas where WWE cannot compete with them, and that is great professional wrestling. And that is what we got on this show, a show that had so much focus, that kept the nonsense to an absolute bare fucking minimum. A show that looked and felt like AEW. A signature AEW show is what we got. No, people throwing around, presents, big wrapped boxes at each other, right? No, candy canes wrapped in phony barbed wire. None of that bullshit. Just straight up great stuff, good to great from top to bottom. Maybe some things in the meantime where you're kind of like, well, this is what it is, but not enough to really take away from the vibes that this show had, which, dare I say, but we're going to get into this one. We're going to get in. But before we do, leave a like on this video, a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, or a 5-star rating on Spotify. Whatever you can do to just help a brother out here, that would be tremendous. Now, according to WrestleTix, 3,012 people showed up at the Gateway Center Arena in Atlanta, Georgia, which they were in College Park, but I guess it's, I don't know. I'm not, in the promos, particularly in Eddie's promo, he was talking about being in Atlanta and whatnot. And I'm like, well, is it really Atlanta? I don't know if it is, but yeah, I'm not super comfortable with the geography of Atlanta and the greater Atlanta area, as opposed to maybe Chicago, because I got that one beat over my head quite a few times. Hoffman Estates is not Chicago, basically. 3,012 tickets were distributed, according to WrestleTix, for this show. Are we starting to see a trend here? We'll be able to see with next week when they hit up Manchester, I believe, right, in the UK, because this will be the second Dynamite in a row that the attendance is higher than the previous time AEW went to that very arena. The last time they came to the Gateway Center Arena, it was in February. Earlier this year, for a Dynamite, 2,718 people. So practically 300 tickets more were distributed. That's a good thing. And it was the same thing last week. I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but it was the same thing last week. We pointed it out here on the podcast, where AEW's typical trend is that they will always be underperforming in regards to the previous time they visited a venue. Now, 2 weeks in a row, the attendance is higher than the previous time they were there. So that's a good thing. And are we suddenly seeing a change, a shifting of the tides here? Listen, let's not get too excited. Well, 2 weeks in a row is a good sign. Will they be able to keep it up? Stay tuned, sports fans, or something like that. All right, we are still in the midst of Continental Classic season, so we are going to be doing what we've been doing over the past couple of weeks here on the Dynamite review, and that is isolate the Continental Classic matches and speak on those before moving on to the rest of the show. So we'll do the Continental Classic stuff first, and then we'll move on with the rest. And our first C2 match of the night was a Gold League match where Kazuchika Okada defeated Jungle Jack Perry, who, of course, is substituting for Darby Allin. I think you all have heard the news so far. I talked about it a little on stream earlier this week when I did a full recap of where we were at in the C2, where we broke down a whole bunch of stuff. You should come to the live streams that I do on YouTube. Whenever you get an opportunity, there's always something interesting going on there, and not necessarily everything ends up on the podcast. I think there's this vision that everything that I record on, or everything that I talk about on stream, ends up being recorded for the podcast, but that is not the case. And the C2 updates, as it stands right now, the full C2 updates, they're stream exclusive. They're there for the streams or the live streams. So be sure to pop in one day, one night, or one evening, or catch the video on demand afterwards. But look, this was a good match. I thought this was very good. I was wondering what kind of level of effort we'd get Kazuchika Okada in here, because old Kazu, he cherry picks how much effort he's going to put in, and there's a lot of times that it's very dependent on the opponent that he's facing. But no, there was a good energy to this. I thought both guys really worked this one quite well. Perry straight out the gate goes immediately after Okada. He's charging at him. He does a great dive on top of that to Okada, which he sold that he had hurt his. I don't know if it was the dive or there was if it was the suicide dive or the one where he got drop kicked off the turnbuckle by Okada. But Jack Perry hurt his ankle within the match, apparently. He thought it was broken. That would have been a very cursed thing to see happen. But he thought it was broken, but apparently he walked it off and it was okay. It was just like, it just really, really hurt. I haven't heard anything at the time of recording. Of course, things can change right now, but on Thursday, over my lunch break, there's nothing that is pointing to Jack Perry being seriously injured and then having to be pulled from the tournament, which would be, that would verge a little more on the side of disaster if you've got to substitute two guys, like for basically the two same guys, right? Because Darby, you're alternating for Darby, and then you're alternating for the alternate, and that sort of starts to become a little suck, and everyone's saying that, oh, he dove into a camera operator and whatnot. Guys, the camera operator was clearly a plant. He caught Jack, right? Your run-of-the-mill camera operator is not bumping by trying to catch another guy. He was a plant. It's fine. It did its job. But, it was clearly the camera guy was clearly part of the show. Okada then starts targeting the leg. He works over it. Jack Perry has a great little comeback. Was a little iffy. He tried to do the Bryan Danielson, he tried to do the Bryan Danielson moonsault flip off the corner, as a guy is charging in on him. You know what I'm talking about? Danielson always does that really, really well, and then hits the ropes and usually follows it up with a knee strike or something. He tried to do that, Perry did, and it didn't quite work out. I don't know if it was just really a timing thing, but he landed right next to Okada. But kudos to Perry here to have just spun right around him and landed a German. He didn't seem phased or anything. Just okay, let's move on. And then he hit a great German suplex on him, does a DDT, a Frankensteiner, hits a big running knee. And then, of course, there's the spot that everyone is talking about that happened in this match where Jack Perry locks in the snare trap. And to escape the snare trap, Okada bites on his hand. So shortly after that, Kazuchika Okada has Perry up into a tombstone position, And Okada, as he's holding him, suddenly like cries out in pain and drops him and grabs his balls, implying that Jack Perry bit Kazuchika Okada in the no-nos. I don't know what to think about that, really. It's fine, I guess. Like, tit for tat, I guess. But then again, you're biting another man's dick. I guess, look, this is where I'm going to leave. This is how I'm trying to rationalize it in my head, right? Oftentimes, I will comment and critique matches that I feel no one is wrestling with a sense of urgency, a sense of stakes, right? Well, if you are lowering yourself to the point where you have to bite another man's penis to get a leg up to try and win this tournament, I'm okay with that. That's the kind of urgency, honestly, that I'm kind of looking for in my wrestling tournaments. Keep that energy, everyone. Now, that being said, I'm not saying that the rest of the field has to start biting each other's dicks. At some point, it's gonna get old. That's all. From this point on, dick biting has diminishing returns. Is that fair? I think that's fair. And then at the end, Perry avoids the drop kick, but Okada gets him in a tilt-a-whirl landslide and then hits the Rainmaker for the win, securing 3 points. Kazuchika Okada now at 6, and Jack Perry still at 0. Should we do the aftermath? Let's do the aftermath right now, because I'm afraid I'm going to forget. If we don't do the aftermath now, I know I said I want to focus on the Continental Classic stuff, but if we don't do it now, I'm going to forget. The Don Callis family jumps in and they surround Jack Perry. Most of them are there, of course. Andrade's still not there. And Don Callis basically puts Perry over and says, look, I'm offering you a spot plus a signing bonus. It's the money that belongs to the Bucks. I'll give it to you. Perry gets on the mic. He hesitates and he says something to the effect that, look, I'll do what I always do and I'll bite off more than I can chew. I cannot help but wonder if that is a compliment to Kazuchika Okada. But anyway, he jumps in and, throws the first punch, goes after the Don Callis family because he's a stupid babyface. And or was he all that stupid because the Bucks come in, they blindside everyone with chairs after Luchasaurus sort of comes to the ring to distract. It feels like it was all a plan. There was no Kenny Omega that came out here, quite unfortunately. The Omega relationship with the Young Bucks is very, very strange to me. I don't understand it because why wouldn't he have come out? And people say, well, because he's unsure as to whether the Bucks are chill or not. Like, I feel like this was settled a couple of weeks ago or even last week. I don't quite remember because time doesn't have any bearing on me anymore. I feel like this thing with Omega and the Bucks, will they, won't they? Isn't it settled? Isn't it like, didn't Kenny Omega outright say, I'm going to give these guys a second chance. Everyone needs a shot at redemption. And then like they're all in the locker room, hanging out and I don't know. Now there might be stuff happening on being the elite that is justifying whatever's going on TV, but I don't watch BTE. So if they're continuing the storyline in BTE, at the very least, it should be consistent with what we're seeing on television. The TV is the canon that's the thing that you should be watching. BTE is the companion piece. It's like, it's not, it shouldn't be considered required viewing. Otherwise it'd be on TV as well, And how many things have happened on BTE over the years that have never been canon on TV? And let's be honest, we're a far cry from the really great days of being the elite. If we're being honest, the really great era of BTE, it's gone now. Anyway, the Bucks hit Okada with a BTE trigger. So that, of course, is indeed leading to something. And Konosuke Takeshita takes the bullet, eats a super kick for Don Callis. He shoves him out of the way and he eats one on the chin. So again, we didn't do heavy emphasis on the Okada-Takeshita rivalry this time around, but this adds a little pepper to the recipe here. We'll see how it goes. The next C2 match was of course, Speedball Mike Bailey defeating Kyle Fletcher in another Gold League match. An extraordinary television match, an extraordinary addition to the legacy of the C2. This is right now, this at least for 2025, this is the best match of the tournament so far. And the bar is extremely high. Like, it's not even like, this was a solid 4-star match. The bar is set. No, the bar is really fucking high now. Just an absolutely bonkers, balls to the wall match that I completely expected it to be. I expected Mike Bailey and Kyle Fletcher to just have themselves a really great one. It looks like they were told, guys, go out there and steal the show. And they went out there and they stole the show. Right now, this has topped everything else so far. And I love how this match was put together, where you have Bailey, who's trying to hit his moves. He's trying to get some rhythms going, but Kyle Fletcher he's stalling. He's rolling out of the ring and he's doing stalls. And Bailey is he's hitting all of his spectacular stuff. That corkscrew acai moonsault to the floor was fantastic. Fletcher then gets him. They're fighting up on the rail on top of the barricade, and Fletcher just picks him up and slams him pretty hard on the rail. Bailey has this huge welt on his back for the rest of the match, which was outstanding stuff. Bailey's doing his double knees, his moonsault double knees everywhere. He does this incredible Rana from inside the ring to the outside, catching Fletcher. Like commentary said, they thought that Fletcher thought that he was just going to be hit with just a plain old tope, but Bailey just transitioned into doing a Frankenstein. He is so good. He's so incredibly good. The Ultima Weapon connects. Fletcher kicks out of it. Fletcher lands the Brainbuster. Bailey kicks out of it, and he counters a late sequence with a rolling sunset flip cross arm deal, and he basically grabs the win with under a minute remaining. This match was so fucking good. It was such high level stuff from both these guys. Look, Kyle Fletcher once again continues to prove that he is a total package wrestler, that he truly has everything, all of the tools to legitimately be great. And he continues every single time to prove it. And then out of nowhere, C2 match, and these guys are just they're laying everything out. Everything is being laid out. We knew Mike Bailey would be an exciting addition to AEW. Everyone said, this is the spot that Bailey will thrive in. This is the spot that Mike Bailey will be able to shine in, being in AEW is what I mean, right? And I think he's proven on multiple occasions, his tag team with Kevin Knight is fantastic. But every time he gets into these big matches, these big singles matches where the spotlight is on him, he over delivers. He blows everyone's mind. He is so good at this. And what an incredible story, ultimately. When you start thinking about Mike Bailey, who was banned from the US years ago, right? Pandemic hits, he's stuck in Japan, right? And finally is able to come back, start working in the US. He has that WrestleMania week, and I believe, what was it, 2-3 years ago? Again, time has no bearing on me, but it hasn't been all that long. He had that WrestleMania week where he knew, he said to himself, look, I'm going to work everything. I think it was 3 years ago. I'm going to work everything for everyone, and I'm going to be the MVP of this tournament, of not this tournament, but of this WrestleMania weekend. He was. He got everyone's attention. Suddenly, Speedball Mike Bailey, relegated to working, the freelance Japan tours, right? Banned from the US, makes his re-entry into American wrestling, and reminds everyone how good he was like 3 or 4 years ago before he was unable to re-enter the United States. What an absolutely phenomenal story, all the way to this point here, where he is a solid value. He is a guy that you can always depend on to have a great match. And a guy you could slot pretty high on your card. I am still of the belief that there's certain quirks about Mike Bailey that I think create a ceiling for him. But outside of those feelings, Mike Bailey as a surefire upper card dude absolutely works. He is a phenomenal performer, a phenomenal pro wrestler. He gets it. And this crowd, this Atlanta crowd, first of all, was great all night. But more importantly, for this match, they were eating everything up. And with reason, right? And and I've seen some comments of people saying, oh, well, it's easy to get into it when the crowd is this good. There was no reason for this crowd to not be good because they got a great evening of professional wrestling. Everything that happened on this card was good to great, to excellent in this case. Why wouldn't they be hot for everything? People were cheering. They were up on their feet. They were pulling the hair out of their heads. It was such a great match that was elevated by the crowd. Look, if you ask me, I'd give this 4 3/4 stars. Maybe just falls short to a match of the year for me personally. But other than that this match was absolutely phenomenal. Just incredibly great. And it's highly recommended. If you haven't watched Dynamite, you should watch it. If you don't watch Dynamite, you should watch it. It's just one of those matches. It's just one of those matches that you have to drop everything and go and enjoy, because it was fucking phenomenal. And I loved the finish. I loved everything about it. I thought it was so good. So that is Mike Bailey's first 3 points on the board. Kyle Fletcher stays at 6. Let's talk about the standings real quickly. For Gold League, Kyle Fletcher, Kazuchika Okada both tied at 6 points at the top. Pac, Kevin Knight, and Mike Bailey all at 3 points. Jack Perry with 0. Over and just for reference sake, it's exactly the same situation as of today, Thursday, December 11, over my lunch break. It's the Blue League is a carbon copy of Gold League. 2 guys at the top with 6 points, Konosuke Takeshita and Claudio Castagnoli. 3 guys with 3 points, John Moxley, Orange Cassidy, and Mascara Dorada. And 1 guy with the goose egg. In this case, it's Roderick Strong. So I'm excited to see how things are going to start getting mixed up here. I'm looking forward to see where the drama is going to be. But as it stands for now, this is where we're at. All right, let's go with the rest of the show here, which started off with the AEW Women's World Tag Team Championship Tournament Finals, where the Babes of Wrath defeated the Timeless Love Bombs to become the inaugural Women's World Tag Team Champions in a very good match. I enjoyed the match tremendously. I thought I thought the pace was extremely good. Everyone worked hard. I think that they did a very good job. They did a very good job to not focus too much on Harley and let her do things like on her own, because she's still extremely green. Mina's very hit and miss. They had Tony and Willow make sure that they were able to put everything together here, and it was terrific. Like this match is unquestionably the best match of this entire tournament. And it's not even close. Like we're talking dozens of country miles separate the final from everything else that happened in this tournament, which I thought was not good. So at least the final was very good. I enjoyed it tremendously. It was explosive. We didn't rely on too much nonsense. There were mirror spots and whatnot, but that's fine. It wasn't like the entire crux of the match, and it didn't take me out of it either. But the surprise, I consider it a surprise win, an upset win, having the Babes of Wrath both do their finishers on Mina Shirakawa with basically Willow driving the nail into the coffin with the Babe with the power bomb. It's a surprise. I think everyone figured that this was going to be that this was going to be Toni Storm and Mina Shirakawa's tournament to win. That they were going to put them on, a former world champion and, one of the biggest stars in the company being Toni Storm to sort of build prestige around it. And more importantly, give something for Toni Storm to do and defend while she maybe takes a step away from the world title picture. That's clearly not the case. I'm going to tell you, I don't mind ultimately that the Babes of Wrath won, but I was legitimately expecting Willow to be freed up after this so that Willow could go fulfill her destiny, which is to defeat Mercedes Moné for the TBS title. I think that is legitimately the best story they could tell. Now they can still tell it with her being in a tag team and being a tag team champion. They can still do that. But that's why I thought that they were going to lose. One of the reasons that I thought they were going to lose. Now, I don't see the path as clearly for Willow to go do that specifically, being the one who takes the TBS title away from Mercedes Moné. Sure, we've got, when do they want to do it? Do they want to do it at Double or Nothing? Do they want to do it at what's the one after Revolution? I can't remember. It's not Wrestle Dream. It's not World's End. You know the one I'm talking about. I just can't remember the name right now. The one between Revolution and Double or Nothing. Do they want to do it there? Do they want to do it at Revolution? Depending on when they want to do it, there's still time to build it. They're not, stuck up against the wall here. And then my main question also in regards to Toni Storm is, what do you have Toni Storm do? Is she going to go chasing titles? Is she going to be the one to take the title off of Mercedes, the TBS title? And if so, I mean, it's fine, but I still think the better story would have been Willow. And in case you're wondering why you so stuck up on this more, well, because Willow was the woman who dropped the TBS title to Mercedes. They might also be building to Chris Statlander versus Willow, which has a lot of implications. That has a lot of story in and about itself. I mean, it's fine. There's stuff to do for Willow, which makes it all the more curious as to why they won the titles. But look, congratulations. And here's something that I liked. They gave time for the women, well, Willow and Harley, to celebrate in the ring, right? They took a moment to grab the microphone, wrap their arms around each other, and give a rah-rah speech. We did it, and Willow saying, again, referencing her stuff with Chris Statlander, saying, it's like, I didn't know who had my back, so on and so forth. But this girl here, she did, as Harley's mouth is full of blood. Something happened. I don't know what exactly happened, but her mouth was bloodied up. Look, it was good stuff. It was legitimately, tremendously good stuff. They took the time to celebrate it after a really good 3.5-star match. I enjoyed it. It was honestly a great way to kick off Dynamite. And here's something else I forgot to mention in the Continental Classic stuff. I really like sideline reporter Renee Paquette, right? Who's ringside and breaking down what's happening in the C2, giving context and whatnot. I think that's great. I think that's legitimately great because it adds to the presentation of the C2. It makes it feel like a sporting event. And then they have the ticker at the bottom, right? They have the ticker that appears to give the standings. I'm like, these are all just little fucking great things that AEW should implement more because, again, these are things that the other guys will not do. And it adds to the presentation of the C2, makes it feel like a sports tournament instead of just like something goofy. Feels like that makes everyone understand, okay, well, you see, these are the stakes. The story we're telling here is it's a tournament. So I appreciated that. I thought that was extremely, that was really good. I'm into it. They're doing a really good job. We get a menacing promo from the Ops backstage, heralded by Samoa Joe, who when Samoa Joe does these promos where he's just like looking completely menacing and talking in hushed tones, I think that to me is his some of his best work. It's just chilling. It's great stuff. Then we get a pre-tape from the Death Riders in a stairwell. Mox cuts another great promo, and then Daniel Garcia jumps in, fired up, because of course they want to give him some shine because he's got a big TNT title match coming up against Mark Briscoe. I believe it's next week. I think it's next week, or is it? I don't think it's in Cardiff this weekend, right? I'm sorry, I don't remember. But he gets fired up, and good little promo. Then we get the Kazuchika Okada Jack Perry match and the subsequent angle that they did. The Babes of Wrath are backstage. They're celebrating with the conglomeration, and the Timeless Love Bombs show up as well. Roderick Strong is being a sourpuss in this one. Then we get a video package covering Mercedes Moné's loss of the Ring of Honor's Women's World Television Championship, and this is significant because you can tell like Mercedes is not taking it well and her insecurities are bubbling to the top, and it's going to make her lose focus. So, it would appear as though the descent of Mercedes Moné is going to start happening, I'm sure, to the joy of millions of weirdo haters, or at least, I don't know, millions, thousands, hundreds, maybe, who didn't like this in the first place. The fact that she was winning all these titles. Eddie Kingston gets a promo backstage with Renee, and he's putting over the fact that he's nervous. He's feeling off here, but it helps him stay focused. And again, like, this is one of these extremely relatable Eddie Kingston promos that make Eddie Kingston, where he is just the most relatable everyman. He's a contemporary guy going through very modern things, and I think that's where the relationship, that's where the ties with Eddie Kingston and the AEW audience happen. It's because he's extremely relatable. He mentions that it's the 50th anniversary of Terry Funk's first title win, and he hopes he makes the Funkster proud. Ain't that a shame? Mark Briscoe's in the ring, and he cuts a promo, firing back at his doubters, puts over his match with Daniel Garcia coming up for the TNT title. I think it's this week. I think it's in Cardiff, right? Now that I think back at it, I think I remember, I didn't write it down, but I think I remember Mark Briscoe saying the word Cardiff, right? I think I did. And then Wheeler Yuta arrives, and he's talking some shit, gets the crowd booing him. Of course, Dan Garcia's there, and as is Marina Shafir, and Garcia basically threatens to break his leg. What are you going to do to support your family if you have a broken leg? And Briscoe dares him to fight him now. So Garcia pie faces him, to which Mark Briscoe responds with the right hand, and then there's a pull apart where the Death Riders try to keep Garcia from making things worse. I'm excited to see this little match. I think it should be pretty good. The Triangle of Madness are beating up some J-Brones backstage. Chris Statlander comes in to make sure her locker room is safe, and she drives them away with the chair. And they seem to be setting something up with Tekla, which I am not against. Of course, in the meantime, they're setting up the tag team match, which I believe is happening in Cardiff this weekend, with Jamie Hayter and Statlander versus the Sisters of Sin. That's what they're going to be doing. And I think the follow-up then is probably going to be Statlander versus Tekla. I could be wrong. We'll see. Then we get the tornado match between Hangman Adam Page and Swerve Strickland versus the Ops. In fact, Hanger and Swerve defeated Katsuyori Shibata and Powerhouse Hobbs. And they came in through the audience, they being Adam Page and Swerve Strickland. And they both start fighting into the crowd with Hobbs and Shibata. And it was fantastic. What a really great way to start the match. It was chaotic. It was fun. And they even did the split screen, which I'm a huge fan of. When there's all this stuff happening around the arena, I love the split screen. So you see both. You just really get a feeling of the chaos that's going around. So they fight into concessions, the concourse, I guess you'd call it. Hangman chucks a Christmas tree at Hobbs, and then beats him up a bit and has a drink. Meanwhile, Powerhouse Hobbs is eating. Swerve Strickland is eating shit from Katsuyori Shibata, who wielded a staple gun in this match, because Swerve came to the ring with a staple gun around a chain, hanging from a chain, I should say. The chain was around his neck. It doesn't matter. And look, I'm pretty sure that this is the first time that the wrestler Katsuyori Shibata ever used, or was wielding at the very least, a staple gun within a wrestling match. And look, we got to say this, right? Katsuyori Shibata is a guy that was told, you'll never wrestle again. He made his comeback. New Japan said, we're not getting behind you here. We're not doing this. So tries his luck over at AEW. AEW embraces him. And I think it's not something people, I feel, talk enough about, because I think Shibata's not very high up on the pecking order in AEW. But nonetheless, this is a guy who has been wrestling consistently in AEW for a while now. And as a Shibata fan, it makes me very, very happy. It makes me happy that this guy can, at the very least, have a semblance of a career back. Look, we are not talking about mid-2010s Katsuyori Shibata. That guy will never. That guy there in that period, he will never wrestle again. He's gone. But nonetheless, we still have this version of Shibata who can still go, who is still great, who can still keep up and be fantastic in the ring, coming in every week, working his ass off, after being told, no, you can't do it, after being told by his employer, no, we don't want to run the risk of having you wrestle anymore. It's outstanding. That makes me feel good. That's the kind of shit that when you sit back and I'm looking at this match, I'm like, God damn it. Not that long ago, I was crying my eyes out just by Katsuyori Shibata showing up, on a New Japan event and then getting drop kicked by Kenta, right? And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so happy that he's getting physical and whatnot. Now he's been actually wrestling. He's been wrestling at still a high level. No, it's good stuff. It's really good stuff. Anyway, this was a lot of fun. I thought it was very good. It's another 3.5-star match for me. Double powerbomb off the apron through a table on Hobbs by the baby faces, and back inside, buckshot lariat followed by the house call get the win on Shibata for the Hangman and Swerve, who trade some very what's the word I'm looking for? Intense glares with each other. Dare I say, passionate? Now we might be getting into fanfic territory. This was very good. Don Callis, after this, cuts a promo, basically challenging the Young Bucks to come and get their money, the $1 million, and to bring a partner because they are going to be facing 3 of the Don Callis family. I think he being Don, I think he teased Kazuchika Okada and Kensuke Takeshita and Hechicero. I could be wrong. Probably be on a night where there's no league action. Look, or at least those guys won't be involved in the league action. Anyway, we'll see how this all turns out. Stokely Hathaway cuts a promo saying the most dangerous narcotic is not in the streets, it is being on camera. And he says that Austin Gunn and Juice Robinson are addicted to it, but it's all going to come to an end when FTR basically rehabs them into shape because they're going to beat them and they won't be on TV anymore. Good little promo. Then we get the Hangman backstage where basically he's asked, what's next, Hangman? And he says it's always the same, the AEW Men's World Championship, and he's coming for the champion at World's End. I think this is going to be a setup where, one Swerve Strickland might come around and say, hey, partner, what about me? And I think we're getting a multi-man match at World's End. That would be my prediction. I believe this is where we got the Speedball Kyle Fletcher match. No, it happened just before the Hangman promo. Apologies for that. We get the Hangman promo. Then we get a promo from the Bucks, basically saying the trios match is official and they want to recruit Luchasaurus, but Luchasaurus points to the Kenny Omega door. And the guys go and knock on the door and say, Kenny, do you want to join us? And again, he's kind of like, yeah, I guess I'll do it, but not for money, just because I want to get my hands on Don Callis. And again, I'm like, okay, why does this all feel awkward still? Why does this all feel weird? I don't quite understand what they're doing with this. But, basically the Bucks have accepted the challenge. And then Samoa Joe defeats Eddie Kingston to retain the AEW Men's World Championship. I thought that was good. I thought it was pretty good. Hook tries to interfere early on, gets ejected, and Joe and Eddie just do what they do best, and that is just a slugfest. There was these great open hand exchanges at some point where I'm just like, rapid sequence combos. I'm like, holy shit! All right. More of this, but we didn't get more of it, right? I understand you want to do stuff, but it was a slugfest. It was a big, heavy match. They're dropping each other with Saito suplexes and uranagis and all this stuff. I feel like it could have been even more of a brawl. I feel like it could have been a lot more brutal, but what happened was fine. It was a good little match. It's probably my least favorite match of the show at 3.25 stars, but still, if that's my worst match of the show, and it's a 3.25 star match, I think that's pretty good. Joe was just overpowered him, doing the power slams and the Michinoku drivers, and Joe was very good here. And Eddie, well, his whole thing is it's his heart, it's his passion, and that's what he's able to transmit. Whatever he can't do athletically, he can absolutely make up for in crowd connection, essentially. I thought he was very good here. It sort of appeased a lot of the questions that I had regarding Eddie's singles career moving forward. Now, I'm not saying this off of the pretext that he had this incredible match, oh my God, Eddie Kingston is back. But up until this point, from his return, I didn't think Eddie looked particularly good. Here, I think he looked good. I'm not, like I said, I'm not sitting around saying this is Eddie's greatest performance. Oh my God, Eddie has turned into a workhorse, a work rate machine. It was never the case to begin with. And it definitely won't be the case for him post-injury moving forward. I mean, he nonetheless in this match, throughout the promos, he and Joe, while it didn't make sense for Eddie to win the tournament, to win the world championship, he nonetheless was able to make us believe that maybe, just maybe, he could do it. And that's Eddie Kingston's true strength. That's why I sat down and was compelled by this match, and why this match worked, and why the audience got into it as well. But this was a good, solid brawl between two guys who are masters of the style, are extremely good at it. I think I would have, I think it would have benefited a lot more from, that one sequence where they were trading open hand combos with each other. If that had been peppered out a lot more throughout, or if it had been really turned into a slugfest, I think that would have elevated the match a lot more. But it was fine. It was a good little match for a world championship defense that no one expected a title change on regardless, right? I don't think anyone was betting the farm on it. If they did, I'm sorry, you're losing your farm. 3.25 star match for me, as Eddie loses, tapping out in the Coquina clutch. What are you going to do? Well, I'll tell you what you're going to do. You're going to stop watching this review because we're done. We're finished for this great, excellent show with nothing but really good stuff on the show. A truly excellent match, a solid, entertaining main event, and just good stuff throughout. Nonsense at a minimum. A signature AEW show was the this year's Winter is Coming show. I hope you have a good rest of your week. By the way, I will be back later tonight on Thursday, if you're listening to this on Thursday, for a live stream, so come and join us for that. Otherwise, I will be back in a couple of days with more streaming on Monday, and then the Mr. Warren Hayes show, and then another review next week. So thank you all very much for listening. Go watch some Randy Orton, not just watch Randy Orton, but go watch some of Randy Orton's work and come back to me. Get back to me. I can't even do this, the finishing catchphrase. I'll see you next time.